Welcome back, everyone. The Broad Podcaster. I'm Jennifer Fierro here in the Highland Lakes, segment number 2. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Burnet Bulldogs. And I would like to do a recap, starting with the loss to Lampasas last week, Daniel. I had a chance to talk to Coach Wood on Saturday. Lampasas beat the Bulldogs 35-14. But what's interesting about that was a 7-7 game for 2.5 quarters. So I believe they come out in the second half, and I think this is right. You can obviously check this on TexasChalkTalk.com. That's where all of my Highland Lake stories, Daniel stories are found there. Go there, double check my facts just to make sure. So they come out for the second half, 7-7. Lampasas goes down and scores. Then I can't remember if they go up 21-7, and I think that's right. Lampasas scores, and then they score again. Burnet goes down and cuts it to a 21-14 game. Coach Wood, and during the touchdown, Lampasas is called for a personal foul. So that allows Burnet to kick off on the Lampasas 40-yard line. Coach Wood calls for an onside kick. And that is textbook football. I agree with that. You're kicking off on the opponent's 40, short field. That's textbook football. Credit Lampasas because they got the ball. Lampasas gets it. They go down and they score. And then there is some sort of a turnover somewhere. That may or may not be right, but there's a turnover. Maybe there's a turnover somewhere that gives them a touchdown, that gives them the 21 points or that third touchdown. And then they try to cut it back. There's a turnover somewhere in that sequence. But regardless, in Coach Wood's mind, that game, because I want to say that Lampasas got a couple of short fields, were able to take advantage of that. But in Coach Wood's mind, that was a 21-14 ball game at the end. When he and I talked on Saturday, he left me with the impression that he felt very good about what they did in special teams, and he felt really, really good about what they did defensively. He was not happy that they could not finish enough offensive drives. Mm-hmm. And that's really what stood out to him. I think it also probably bugs him to no end that the defensive coordinator at Burnet is a kid named Corey Warner. I don't know if you remember Corey.
Yeah.
Corey was a defensive back from Bob Shipley back in the day in the mid-2000s. And Corey and his wife, both Burnet graduates, Corey, they were at Burnet CISD, and Corey was a position coach about 2 or 3 years ago. And then Lampasas came calling and offered him the defensive coordinator position, and he took it. So I am sure a lot of what he teaches his defenders, he learned being a Burnet Bulldog. And it's kind of one of those things. It's kind of like an ironic. What are you going to do? Because it's one of your own. And he just took it to him. Did what he needed to do and got that done for Lampasas. But Corey was always a gifted coach, very, very good at coaching defensive backs, and I'm happy for him. I wish I could say I'm surprised by his success as defensive coordinator. I am not. I think that he has done a superb job leading the Badger defense and then helping them to make sure that they stayed. That they didn't allow Burnet to get too far up, didn't allow them to get away from them, and then bought themselves enough time. Because, like I said, I believe there was a turnover that gave Lampasas a short field and got them that third touchdown, I think is how I remember it. And then Burnet responded, got one of those touchdowns back, called for the onside, didn't get it, and then Lampasas just kind of went from there. So Lampasas is at Taylor this week. You said Canyon Lake is at Davenport. Do you think that this loss to Lampasas is one of those that could beat Burnet twice against Marble Falls?
I don't know. I think with reading your stories and kind of paying attention and knowing the history of Burnet, I think Burnet doesn't cave. They don't, I mean, I think I don't think they're gonna, the loss to Lampasas, um, they'll chew on it and they'll be just that much more fired up because they know coming in, I think against Marble Falls, and I think Marble Falls has to know too that two losses, they're each one loss in this team, right? Both teams have lost their opening game in district. Two losses going into the third week is not, you're digging a hole for yourself. And so I think Burnet is they're just chewing on that loss to the Lampasas. They're going to be fired up coming out against Mustangs. And you know the history of these two teams. This is not, these teams one could be undefeated coming in, the other with no wins at all, and it could still be a dogfight.
Yeah. Ironically, the visiting team in the Barnet Marble Falls game has won.
Really?
And yeah, the last four
Wow.
years. And I don't know, that if there's something that gives you hope, you know, like I said, it's ironic because I think Barnet has about 14 seniors. Marble Falls has about 17. So there's some comparisons there. What I think Burnett does better is they hide their deficiencies on offense much better. They know who they are. They know who their playmakers are. And it's not hard to figure out. Dash Denton at running back, Grant Jones at receiver, Trenton Park at receiver, Will Johnson at receiver. They throw a lot of bubble screens, And Coach Herman said they do that to set up what they really want to do up the middle. So they kind of lull the defense into thinking bubble, bubble, bubble. And then all of a sudden they go right up the middle. I expect to see a lot of skinny posts. I expect to see Barnet call a lot of skinny posts. It'll be interesting to see how Marble Falls defends that this week. As for the Mustangs, when I talked to Coach Herman, what he said was they've got to figure out a way because the slot T, the traditional slot T is a 3.3 yards per play offense. But Marble Falls will get behind the chains, false starts, motions, and holding calls. They know that Barnet wants to be able to defend and make them go sideline to sideline. The slot T is much more effective. And I'm somebody, in the spirit of full disclosure, tipping my cap to the Cowboys of the 90s. I am somebody who likes the power I, and I like to go up the middle. I'm somebody who'd rather see a trap as opposed to a sweep. Okay. But with that said, Barnet is, and they are prepared for the fact that Barnet will try to keep them from turning corners. They want to keep everything behind the line of scrimmage. I think Marble Falls knows that Barnet's going to crowd the box, just like Canyon Lake did. I don't know who I would give the edge to right now in controlling the line of scrimmage because you and I both know that in the slot T, where Canyon Lake was beyond effective is the fact that the Canyon Lake Hawks controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I'm curious to see what Marble Falls will do then because in the slot T, so much of that offense revolves around the offensive line's ability to enforce its will on the other team. Whereas with Barnett's scheme, they can hide their deficiencies better.
Yeah.
So that is my take on it, and then we'll find out how healthy the Mustangs are. I'm not sure either because we have not. I didn't ask for a report. One of the things that I can tell you that I reported on as part of my preview, I found this one probably to be the most interesting part of my time with Herman on Tuesday. He did something that he said doesn't happen a lot. They walked into the locker room and he gave the floor to his players.
Hmm.
And he allowed his players and encouraged his players to talk. And he reminded them that they were teammates and classmates, to be respectful. Basically, let's not attack one another, but let's lay it out there. What's really going on here? What are you really seeing here? And I found that to be incredibly interesting. He didn't tell me who said what. He didn't tell me what was said, because the locker room, what it's kind of like Vegas. What happens
Yeah.
in the locker room stays in the locker room, that sort of thing. But he said, it's all lip service until you see it on the field. I'm curious to see it on the field now
Yeah.
and see what they can do. Do you have anything you want to say, mention, anything that stands out to you?
You know, I for the Burnet Marble Falls game, you talk about Caney Lake entering that game last week, looking at them, you thought for them it was a must win that the season. This could be a must win for either team in Burnet and Marble Falls. I mean, 2 losses, it's just hard to come back from that. And you could. This district's so weird. You sneak in with 2 losses. You could run the tables after that. I don't know, but probably not if you go into 2 losses. So yeah, I think you're in a situation where these 2 teams, and one of them's going to win, and that one's going to have a leg up on the playoffs over the other one for sure.
Hold that thought. Let's go into segment number 3 and talk about that,
Okay.
because that will lead into the rest of the district, and we can talk a little bit more about the district. I'm Jennifer Fierro, your podcaster here in the Highland Lakes with Daniel Clifton. We're going to close this segment, and we're going to do a third segment kind of on the fly to talk about the standings in District 13 4A Division 1 and to get some more thoughts on that. Please stay with us. Go to the next segment right now. Stay